What's going on? You're here, and you are in full effect. My name is Eric J. Watts Sr., and if you're in the right place, you are at Building Belonging, creating thriving workspaces. In this event, this funky, fresh, dope, special online event is brought to you by your sponsor and the people you paid to be here. Next Step Collective. That's me, Gina Watts, Kevin Gilmore, and Nikki Mills. We are Next Step Collective, and we're ready to help you make your next step your best step. So, listen, Eric J. Watt Sr. the first. You know me. You can call me Eric. If you don't know me, if you don't know, now you know. You can call me Eric. That's fine. You don't have to call me Senior the first. You could, and I would like that, but you don't have to. Listen, I'm excited that you're here today. I'm excited to be here with you, my partners, my team, and family. We are family. Y'all didn't know I was gonna sing on this, did you? This is what I do. We are glad to be here with you today. And we want to hit you with, I'm going to start this thing off. I want to hit you with some of the things that we want you to take away today, that we hope you take away today. But before that, I want to tell you a little bit about who we are. We are Next Step Collective. We are four people, three businesses with one goal. And I'm going to put it to you just like this. We equip leaders, teams, and organizations to drive change, maximize their potential, and shift the world around them. Eric, that sounds great. How do y'all do that? We are all coaches. We are all teachers. And I don't mean like we have teaching certifications. Nevertheless, we teach, whether it's young folk, young adults, high school age kids, adults, business owners, entrepreneurs, teams, organizations, individuals. We work with people who are hungry, as I would put it, who want more out of their businesses, who want more for their teams, who watch this, want more for themselves. And they realize that, man, I've reached the level and now I'm stuck. There's a ceiling here. Or I've watched this. I've reached the end of my own skills and my own abilities and I need some help. How does that correlate to what I'm getting ready to tell you? Think of it like this. I'm a golfer. I love to golf. If you know me, you know that. If you don't know, now you know. And I'm self-taught. And because I'm self-taught, there are limitations that I've reached. Now, if I want to get better and improve some things, guess what I need to do? I need to go get a golf coach. And until I decide to go and get a golf coach, I'm only going to be here, right? At a certain level. And that's the same thing for you. You've reached the level where you say, you know what? I need to press in deeper. I need to go. Steve Winwood, I speak in song lyrics and movie quotes. You know that. And if you don't know, you're finding that out now. I need to go higher. I need to get a higher love, if you will, like Steve Winwood. And that's why you're here today, because you want a higher love, if you will, a higher level in your business, for your team, for your organization, at your school. All right. So shout out to the young folk that may be joining us today. Building belonging and creating thriving workplaces. All right. So here's part of what you're going to take away today. One, tools to better understand yourself and your role in shaping a thriving, inclusive workplace. Two, and these are just a few of them. There are plenty more. These are just a few. Practical ways to plant seeds of belonging across your entire team and your organization. Three, inspiration to show up with more purpose, impact, and authenticity wherever you lead. Listen, that is some good stuff. I'm glad I'm here with you. I'm glad to do this with you. And let's start right now with an activity called Common Bond. And oh, wait. I got to say this because now I've started to say this and people would be disappointed if I didn't say this. Two things. One, yes, I'm from Akron, Ohio. Shout out to the 330 representing all day, every day. I say that every time I speak, online, in person, doesn't matter. Young folk, old folk, and everybody in between. Secondly, back to NSC for just a moment. We are like the Wu-Tang Clan. Wu-Tang, Wu-Tang. We like the Wu-Tang Clan. You know, you remember the Wu-Tang? You remember the Wu. So the Wu was like this. It was a super group of rappers, MCs, and they would come together and they would do that, their dope album, like all of them, all of them on different songs. And then they would break out and then go and do their solo joints, their different solo albums, Raekwon and the RZA and Inspector Deck and Ghostface Killer and all that. You can go look it up if you don't know who they are, or choose not to look it up and take my word for it. That'll work too. And so while we don't rap Although I be trying to get my team, get everybody to get in on a little freestyle sometime. NSC Next Step Collective, we are just like the Wu Tang Clan or your favorite super group if you have one, where we come together and together, yo, we are so much better together. We're also dope when we're not together. We go out and do those solo albums. So whether it's, prophetic coaching for me and event direction and planning for Nikki and G and Bruh Gilmore working with the young folk. When we come together, we're dope. We're also pretty dope when we split up and do our own thing, if you will, like the Wu Tang Clan or Voltron. Shout out to Voltron, to 80s cartoons. Man, anyway, let me come back to where we need to be. I had to get that in now. Now, and this is all, I'm going to tie it all together, baby. You know how I do it. You know I'm going to do it like that. Belonging, right? So we're going to play a game called Common Bond. And here's what you're going to do. Here's what's going to happen. I usually play this in person with groups of people, and I give everyone a card, a U-League card. Shout out to U-League Cards and their president, Rich, who is my homie. But anyway, I give everyone a card, and in the middle of the card, there's an icon. There's a picture. Now, I'm not going to show everybody a different card today or cards at all. This is an online remixed version. Remix. I had to say that. Remix. Anyway, in person, though, there's an icon on the card, and I say, all right, everybody find your common bond partner. And people are like, okay. And some people say, well, what are we supposed to do? And I say, find your common bond partner. And I'm intentionally vague about it because I don't want to give any more instructions, because I'll tell you what I want them to do in just a moment. And part of that is I want them to go and see what they can figure out without me saying anything else. It's a fun exercise. And so similarly today, we're going to do this remixed version of Common Bond. So I'm going to read a statement to you. It's going to also be dropped in the chat. And so when the statement pops in the chat, after I'm finished reading it, it'll be in there. Well, yeah, it'll be in there. Then I want you to drop in your response, a thumbs up or a thumbs down emoji, or maybe it's a smiley face for you, or maybe it's a sad face or angry face. All right. So to keep it simple, thumbs up, thumbs down, smiley face, sad face, or maybe it's a yes or no for you. All right. So drop one of those emojis in the chat. I know you probably like, Eric, you just gave me 5 or 6 emojis. It's okay. Just drop one in there that makes sense in your response to the question. So I'm going to read the question. I'm going to pause, be quiet for a few seconds, give you a chance to drop your emoji in there, and then we'll move on to the next one. All right, you with me? All right, let's rock the house. Common bond. Number 1, I've been in a situation where I felt like the only one who. All right, the emojis are coming in. You should be wrapping that up about now. Don't think too long. Just think a little bit and drop your emoji in there. Number 2, I've changed my mind about something important in the last year. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Number 3, I've worked a job where I felt unseen or underestimated. All right, cool. Don't listen. Don't worry about it. Oh man, you're going too fast. It's cool. These are going to be there. You can respond to these. These are quick things. Don't think too much. If you think long, you think wrong. So just the first thing that comes to mind, drop that emoji. Thumbs up, thumbs down, smiley face if that works for you, or sad face, or like, man, I don't even know what to put. Drop something in there and we'll talk about it. Last one. No, 2 more. 2 more. I've learned something important from someone who sees the world very differently than I do. All right, one more. All right, keep them coming. Keep your emojis coming. I've made assumptions about someone that turned out to be wrong. All right, that was the last one. Couple quick things. One, if you saw my head bobbing, it's because I'm keeping the beat in my head. I had some songs going on in my head, and I was like, yeah, but they don't need to hear them songs right now. But go ahead and bob your head. You can get them out later. So that's why you saw my head bobbing. If you noticed that at all, I'm always jamming in here. All right. So that was crazy, right? Fun? Yeah, that was fun. You can say fun in the chat. Drop a smiley face, thumbs up in the chat. So listen, here's what I need you to know about this: that all of us showed up based on the responses that are in this chat. We showed up carrying different stories, different experiences, different backgrounds, different things we've been through, different things we've had heard and internalized. And it's a lot of stuff, some of us, that we don't even realize. This stuff, it shapes how we move, how we lead, and how we connect, how we get down with other people, right? And here's the thing: if we stay curious about our own story, watch this, this is important. If we stay curious about our own story and about other people's stories, then we don't just get better at leadership, we get better at being real. And let me tell you something: ain't nothing mo better, and I mean it just like that, ain't nothing mo better than the real you, the real me. People getting the real us, the real me, the real you. Ain't nothing more better like that. Listen, I hear the song, ain't nothing like the real thing, babe. Hey, ain't nothing like the real thing. Ain't nothing like the real you showing up to a party. Watch this. Ain't nothing like the real you showing up to your everyday life, at work, in your business, for your husband, for your wife, for your kids. Come on. Ain't nothing like the real you showing up at the grocery store, at church, in your worship space. Come on, watch this. Ain't nothing like the real you showing up in your quiet time. Oh, come on. I know I'm hitting somebody right now, right there, all up in the heart and in the feels. Ain't nothing like the real you showing up anywhere and everywhere that you go, every day of the week. That's what draws people in. Come on, this is for somebody. Ain't nothing like the real you showing up on your YouTube channel, on your Instagram, on your Facebook, on your LinkedIn. The real you. That's what draws people in. That's what builds the connectivity, the connections. That's what, watch this, that's what builds belonging. So let's wrap up with this. And I want you to write this down or take the notes as we give them to you. Assumptions build walls. Curiosity builds bridges. And bridges are where real leadership begins. One more time. Assumptions build walls. Curiosity builds bridges. And bridges are where real leadership begins. All right? Let's move on to the next step of what we've got for you today.
Thank you so much, Eric. Wasn't that a great warm up? My name's Gina, as Eric mentioned, and so myself and my colleague Nikki, we're going to facilitate this next part of our training, and we are so excited to dive into this with you. You know, creating workspaces where everyone feels that they truly belong is something that we're all passionate about, and that we have lived it as practitioners. So you're not just getting a training from people that read a good book or posted a thing on Instagram. We actually lived this out and prioritized this as a part of the way that we lead individuals and teams. So we hope that you will learn with us in this space. You know, building belonging is not accidental. It must be built by design. We have to be intentional with the ways that we build inclusive and thriving workspaces. So in this next few minutes, we're going to help you reflect on how your own journey uh, and how your own journey has formed you as a leader, as an individual, and not just even in the workplace, but you know, it can also help you to start thinking about your own family. And so we're going to talk about that, and it's going to then lead us to craft real strategies to strengthen belonging where you already are. So before I hand it off to Nikki, I want to remind you, share with you a few things. One is that we've created a workbook for you, and so you have access to that. We encourage you to download it, use it. If you're old school like me and you need to print everything, print it off because we made it so that you can write on it. It's going to help you to take notes and refer back to those notes as you're learning, and in the future. The other thing we want to remind you of is like while you're with us, while we're going to be really clear and to the point, stand up, stretch. If you're watching the recording, pause it. Give yourself the space to learn in the best environment possible. So if that means you need to have your coffee, you need to have a little snack, you need to have your water, you need to stretch, make sure you do that because it's going to help you receive all this information that we're going to share with you. All right, Nick, you're up.
Awesome. Thanks, Gina. So one thing I just want to orient us around this topic of belonging as we get to get into this content. Belonging matters. And it's easy to say that, but like, what does that really mean? Belonging matters. And so it impacts how we feel. It impacts our relationships. Like Gina said, both at work, also in your family, your friendships. Like belonging really matters. It impacts who we are. It impacts how we show up and how we interact with other people. So let's bring this close and think about it personally before we dive all the way in. And I want you to think for a second about a time in your career when you felt like you belonged. Think about a time in your career when you felt like, and it could be your family, just think about a time in your life like when you really felt like you belonged. Thinking about one? So as you think about that time that you really belonged, I want you to think about how it made you feel. Okay, and we're going to use the chat feature a little bit today to kind of interact back and forth. So go ahead and drop in there. When you think about that time when you think, yeah, I really felt like I belonged, how did it make you feel? Just a word or two to describe how it made you feel. Go ahead and drop those in the chat for us. Yeah, so feeling like you belong could make you feel safe. It can make you, sure, it can make you feel valued. Yep, included. Can make you feel seen. These are great words. Belonging feels good and it matters. Belonging matters. Yes, feeling valued. That's one that's a great one. I agree with that one very much. I feel valued when I feel like I belong. Now, on the flip side of that, I want you to think about a time when you didn't feel so much like you belonged. So whether it was at work, in your circle of friends, in your family, think about a time that you just didn't feel like you belonged. And we're going to do the same thing. I want you to think of a word to describe how it made you feel when you didn't feel like you belonged. So go ahead and think about that for a second. Let's drop in some emotions to describe how we feel when we feel like we don't belong. Yeah, undervalued. Sure. The opposite of valued is we feel undervalued when we don't belong, or sure, unsafe or excluded. Like I'm not seeing one happy word come through when we talk about what it feels like to not belong, right? Belonging matters. And so as we talk today, I just want you to keep that in mind that like this is really going to impact you, it's going to impact your family, your teams. This topic really matters.
Thanks, Nick. If you just take a second and notice your own feelings that were shared or the ones that we've been sharing with each other, you see how it touches, on identity, on how safe we feel, and our purpose. It's not just about being included, it's about being valued. And I know that as you were reflecting about those times where you felt that you belonged and when you felt like you didn't belong, that you thought of a particular space or place, that you thought of a particular person that made you feel that way. I know for me with my mom is the one I always think about when I think about belonging. She is the queen of creating spaces where people feel seen and included. All of us on this call have actually benefited from that as your facilitators. But that if I think about belonging, I think about my mother and I think about how I've had to share her with hundreds of people over my lifetime. And that's not even like making up a sarcastic number. Like she just knows how to make people feel seen and valued. And then when I think about somebody or a space where I didn't feel like I belonged, or I felt, the things I started to do, I started to actually strive to belong. And I worked really hard to be seen and included. And I think about those people that excluded me. So we're gonna refer, this isn't just a touchy-feely like workshop, but the feelings matter, because the way that you feel, it actually informs the way that you create spaces that make people feel safe and valued and belong. All right. So um we all that forming what I just talked to you about, that's like a formational thing. It's formed you. And it leads us to carry all known and unknown biases. We're shaped by our life experiences, our backgrounds, and our assumptions. So how we were raised, the schools we went to, the experience we've had over our lifetimes, and the places where we've worked, they inform those. And bias isn't just about exclusion. Unchecked, it can quietly erode belonging, even with the best intentions. When we recognize and manage our own biases, we open the door for deeper connection. John Maxwell is somebody who I read a lot, and I've had the fortune of being mentored by him. And he says, everyone communicates, but only a few really connect. And creating spaces of belonging are places where connection happens. It doesn't mean that everybody's your best friend. We're not saying that. I have a handful of people in my life that I call friends. We're saying, though, that in order for people to feel like they belong or to feel valued, you must create space for deeper connection. So, our bias spectrum, when we think about bias and how that informs who we are and how we show up, there's unaware, there's aware, and then active rebuilding. That's the way in which we move um, to manage our bias and understand the way that it affects us. So where might my own assumptions or blind spots impact someone's feelings or belonging at work? That's the thing I want you to think about, is where might your assumptions or blind spots impact somebody's feelings of belonging at work? Let's just take a second and think about that. We want to move ourselves from unawareness, right? That I've never thought about the answer to this question before, to a space of awareness. That's what this question's doing for us. That's why it's important to reflect. Where might my own assumptions or blind spots impact someone's feelings or belonging at work? Take a minute and share. Now, that awareness is for you to hold. One of the things that I share with my staff often is I call it mirror moments. Sometimes we need to just pause and have a mirror moment. We need to reflect on our own behaviors, our own thoughts, our own feelings, so that we can inform the ways that we behave and that we work, so we can move forward in a healthier way, right? Because you can reflect all day long, but if you don't take action on the reflection, if you don't actively rebuild yourself or a relationship, it's not worth the reflection.
So we're going to continue with a little more reflection. You'll hear us talk about that a lot. We want to give you a tool right now because we're all about giving you tools that you can use right away where you are. And so, one thing I just want to encourage you to do is not to just reflect right now in this workshop with us, but to make this just a rhythm that you hold in front of you in life, in your work, in your family, in your circles of friends, like continually reflecting about how we're doing. And right now we're reflecting about building belonging. And so, to grow as leaders who want to have healthy and thriving workplaces and healthy and thriving relationships, we need to have a rhythm of reflection. Okay, so whatever you need to do to make this part of your rhythm, whether it's putting a post-it, I'm a post-it on the mirror person. My bathroom mirror often has a post-it on it for things that I want to work on. It might be an alert, a reminder that you put in your calendar, but just make this a part of your rhythm is to pause and reflect, like, how are we doing? How do we continue to hold in front of us this value of building belonging and being intentional about it? And so I want us to think about these questions when we think about building belonging. I'm not going to ask you to put this in the chat. This is a little bit more of just a private, personal reflection. But when you think about building belonging, I want you to think about this spectrum from 1 to 5, and how would you rate yourself? And this isn't about shame. This isn't about, anything shame based. This is just an honest reflection of how we're doing so that we can continually improve. So when you think about building belonging, ask yourself this question that you see. Rate yourself from 1 to 5. 1 is, honestly, if I'm being honest, I don't really think about this in my leadership or in my circles, in my relationships. I'm not kind of keeping that in front of me. And a 5, if you're rating yourself a 5, would be yes. Like, I am intentionally building belonging into daily conversations, into meetings, and into the culture where I find myself. So just think about that for a second. If you look at that spectrum, where would you find yourself on that? And again, you don't have to share in the chat. This is just to think about with yourself. And then if we continue in this and you rate your team, where would you rate your team? If you think 1 to 5 on that same scale, like when our team works together, are we being intentional? Are we rarely thinking about it? Or are we being intentional? And this is just, again, it's a good question to just keep in front of yourself, in front of your teams, in front of your families, about where are we intentionally making space to think about building belonging and building belonging. And as you think about that, you might have said, like, I think I'm kind of a 3. Okay, that's a start. No matter where you are in the spectrum, we can always improve and grow. So my question to you is, if you think about even the next month or the next week, just in the near future, what is a shift that you could make to move the needle forward on that spectrum a little bit? What is a shift that you could make in the next month or so to just move forward and move a little bit closer to a 5, or even just to the next number on that spectrum? So think about that for a second. Jot it down somewhere. If you've got that workbook printed, you can write it in there. If not, jot it down to think about later. But what shift could you make to be more intentional? And then we're going to continue to give you tools throughout this session to do that.
Great. Thanks, Nick. So wrapping up this part of our time, we just want to remind you of a few tips as you're thinking about, how do I apply this, right? The things that you'll learn from us and as a part of this collective is that we want to not just give you things like these tools or talk about things like what we've shared so far, but we want to make sure that you have clear strategies about how you can implement it immediately. So building belonging requires strategies that are intentional, not accidental. And it starts with 2 things: self-awareness, like what we carry in. So what are those biases? What are those experiences? What are those assumptions? And then small daily choices in how we show up. We don't just change in a day. We change by growing daily, right? So we have to make sure that we're doing those small daily choices consistently so that we can create spaces where our teams and we ourselves thrive. So a challenge to you. Over the next month, I want you to commit to one simple practice that strengthens belonging in the spaces where you are. Even something small, like consistently affirming unique contributions in team meetings. And it has to be real. Like, it can't be just like, oh, thanks for answering that question, or, thanks for making eye contact. Like, I mean, those are real things, but those, if done too often, people will feel like they're not a part of a thriving team. They're going to feel like you're performing, right? And you're not really trying to make an inclusive and belonging environment. So find something that you can do that will make people feel seen and valued. And it's even just a small, consistent, affirming activity. We can give you tons of ideas of how to do that. Your workbook is going to be really helpful as you're going through this training, but we'll also make sure we provide you with some examples of things that we've done over the years. One of the things that is a simple thing that you can do to build a thriving community, inclusive, belonging community, is a shout out board in your break room, and model for people what that looks like. You know, you don't want people to, you don't want it to appear clicky. You don't want it to appear like the same people get the shout outs all the time. But you do want to model for folks spaces where they can themselves shout out each other, because it all shouldn't come from you either. So that's like a simple thing that you can do. It literally takes post-it notes and a marker and a space to put out shout outs. If you work in a virtual environment, you can do that by using whatever platform that you guys have. So if you have Microsoft Teams, if you have Google Workspace, there are a variety of ways that you can do team shout outs. All right. Just a reminder, belonging starts with you. It's built one courageous moment, one conversation, and one invitation at a time. Next up is our friend Kevin. He's going to dive deeper into this conversation with you. Kevin?
Hey, everybody, glad we are in this space. Listen, let's continue on with that same energy as we lean into some more practices, ideas, or just some thoughts that you might need to put around. What can you do when Gina expressed and Nikki expressed about small daily choices and self-awareness? We're going to talk about more how that can continue into the workplace when we're really looking at implementing actionable strategies to create a more equitable workplace, right? So it is about you and how you show up, but about that team that you're on. So in this space, I want you guys to think about, we're going to cover a couple concepts. I want you kind of process a little bit about what's the one thing you might want to take back? What's the one thing you might want to consider? Not all of it. We have a lot of information for you. You can continue to connect with us. We will continue to support you in your teams and your growth and development. But think about that one thing. Continue to look in this workbook. Let's look at 3 different areas that we're going to be talking about today, just as a quick overview. Identifying barriers to equity in the workplace. What does it really look like? The conversations about equity and everything are going on everywhere right now, but what can we really do in day-to-day, practices to continue to build that and break down barriers and be able to identify the things we need to identify so we can continue to work and collaborate with each other? The second thing will be building accountability and measuring progress. Like, how do we really measure progress together? What are the things we need to be thinking about? What are the concepts? What are the processes? Quite honestly, where are we at? And not that way we're working in assumption, but we're working together and moving forward as a team. And then lastly, we're going to wrap up with fostering a culture of allyship and belonging. Like, how do we just come together and be one? How do we continue that work to continue to deep dive in, and do the things that we need to do together? Well, let's jump on into that first section there. Identifying barriers in the workplace. So one of the first things I want you guys to think about is common systematic barriers based in workplaces. We sometimes forget about our hiring practices. We need to think more about how does it look for us to hire our teams? What are the places where we're making sure that people have access to mentorship? It makes me think back a long time ago when I was still young and I was working. One of the first things I remember having was there was a senior person on the job, someone who had been doing the work, was able to support me, mentor me along the way. Are we still doing that? Is that something we need to bring back? Is that something we're thinking about? Why are our policies lacking inclusivity? What are we not thinking about? Who are we not thinking about? When we make these decisions and make these plans around the work we're going to do, who should be sitting at the table so we can have everybody's voices to represent the work and the people and the individuals that are in that space? The other thing we can think about is the impact of small changes. Small changes. They can lead to some big and amazing shifts, and it can cause and create for you, I should say, some representation in places and spaces that we didn't think about before. Small changes can lead to some things if you do them daily and implement, and sometimes you might have to go back and start over. But if you do them over time, you will see some growth, and it would be big, amazing shifts that you can see amongst your team and really shift those barriers into a place where it's equitable for all. And then lastly, equity acknowledges systematic barriers to equality in the workspace. I know the buzzwords around DEI and everything, but let's really think about how do we really shift from these spaces to make sure that all spaces are equitable and inclusive for everybody to be a part of, no matter where they come from. This is from learning perspectives. This is from beliefs and backgrounds, and also to really think about what systems are in place that are actually creating spaces for us not to work together, not to collaborate. We want to shift that. We want to really think about what are the things that we're putting in place that allows us to come together, to collaborate, to think outside the box, to be more creative and innovative. Take a moment and think about those areas right there. Is there anything you need to highlight? Anything you might want to consider?
Is there something you might be experiencing on your team right now? It's like, man, we need to have a conversation about that to really see how we can shift and not just our behaviors, but in our mindsets when it comes to really creating an equitable workspace. Let's jump over to the next thing. We're going to talk about progress, and I'm going to tell y'all now, I am not the data guy. All the information and collecting and the survey monkeys and things of that nature are not for me. But listen, they work. Sometimes it's just having the conversation and the connections with people, the open feedback loop where you can continue to talk amongst your peers and colleagues and with your boss, where there's not division, but collaboration. We can measure progress in a way where we're really thinking about how not just my self-awareness, but my relationship management. How am I supporting the work that we're doing in this space? One of the biggest things is in a lot of spaces, they talk about cultural shifts and they forget that they have these goals and how they connect to the KPIs. Representation matters. Retention has been a big thing in a lot of spaces, and pay equity. When we take some time to really think about the culture shifts that we need to make, we can measure progress to see where we're really at and where we're trying to go. Catch that, it's a we. So that way you can really look into those KPIs and make sure that those goals, those missions, and those outcomes can come together to help us really support an equitable workplace where we're building accountability, but also along the way measuring and sometimes having to go back to the drawing board to think about some things. It makes me think about, I'm on here with Nikki and Gina as we're unpacking things. Baby, a key word around here is called whiteboard sessions. And you might need to think about those whiteboard sessions. They could change your life. They could change the individual's life. And sometimes that might mean doing some shifting and thinking about the processes and the procedures that are in place that might not be creating accountability, but causing silos. The next thing we're going to talk about is that data piece. And let's stress this: the importance of regular assessments and transparent reporting. I'm going to say that again: regular assessments and transparent reporting is key. People are tired of doing surveys and not really getting feedback. Don't ask me a question if you don't really want to hear my voice. How can we really lean into our working with our staff and our partners, our small teams, our bigger teams, to really collect that information to find out where we at, to have honest conversations about areas that might be sticky, areas that might not be going as well, to help create for that person that might be the most silent person on the team, but might have a new idea where we're getting some feedback in a way that's like, oh, that's an innovative thing we did not think about. That's not a process that we didn't think to put in place. And then having some transparent leadership with transparent conversations about where we're at. Sometimes we just got to say the thing, name the thing, and talk about the thing. But to avoid it is not going to help us make any progress. And we want to measure, we want to grow, and want to move forward together as a team. Now, my biggest one, Gina already told y'all my favorite book. She already mentioned it earlier. Did y'all catch that? Everyone communicates through connect. Shout out to John Maxwell. One of my most favorite things. Listen, I'm still working on it. I done read the book 1,000 times over and even got the audacity to teach on it sometimes. But listen, I know I also have to do that work when it comes to digging into communication. Communication culture is important. The impact of feedback loops are powerful. They can shape and make the work that you're doing in any space and place. This is having conversations and opening that communication with feedback loops with your employees. If you're a supervisor on this team, it's also with your peers, the people you work with in groups. Sometimes having a focus group to have a conversation to really think about what are some things we're thinking about this new idea. We got this new thing that's coming top down that we need to work on. Bringing people to the table to have a conversation for the people who are on the front line doing the work to really find out how can we create a place to have conversations around change and difference so we can do the things that we need to do. That also builds accountability because now I got to own it. I was a part of the conversation. It's easier for me to show up. It's easier for us to measure progress. And then guess what? When I need help, when we need to refine, when we need to pivot, it's real simple for me to do that because there's already a culture of communication that has been open. A lot of us are talking and saying nothing to no one. We need to think about that. I want us to right here pause for a second and think about where are some areas that you need to maybe think about some culture shifts, some communication shifts, or using data in a different way, that it can help really pivot and change, create better and stronger accountability, but help us measure progress beyond the limitations that we think are in front of us. Just pause for a second and think about that. Make a couple notes to yourself. What are the things you're thinking about? What are some things that are coming up? Where are some areas that you might want to lean into? All right, we're going to move into this next space as you guys are continuing, to lean into spaces of growth. One area I really want us to talk about, we've mentioned this word culture, and I already love that they kicked it off for us. We've leaned into what belonging really looks like. In a world with so many differences, many backgrounds, people with different stories, which are so powerful and so amazing, it makes me think about a book that we had done on the team together by Simon Sinek called Better Together. It makes me think about, if you guys remember the old school book Where the Wild Things Are. It's very cartoony like that, something real simple to read. It's one of my classics favorites when you think about it, but it's really great to do that with your team. A quick book study to really talk about belonging in a way where there is no one left on the side. There is no one sitting out not knowing what's going on. No team member cannot feel like they're not a part of the conversation, no matter who they are and what they represent. We had a culture and still have a culture where it can be the janitor all the way up to the CEO. We're all going to sit at this table and we're going to work together and create and continue to foster that belonging space. How does this happen? I want you to make a note. I'm going to share three. You see them on the slides, but think about this. Which one might be most important for you? Encourage active ally behaviors. That means speaking up, mentoring, advocating. Let me go back to that speaking up thing real quick, though. Is it a safe space to do so? What culture are we creating? Can people be honest? Can people share? Is there some mentoring going on? Can people ask for help and get the support that they need? And then in spaces when we're doing work and collaborating, can I advocate and know that someone's going to advocate for me? How are we using our voices in these spaces? The next thing is embedded empowerment for belonging into daily team practices. They just gave y'all a good one. Put that board up in the break room. Give some shout outs. Let's not all act like you want to be shouted out. You want somebody to say your name and talk about what you did. Because a lot of the work we do and a lot of the things that we do into the midnight hours sometimes go thankless. It's really good sometimes to hear somebody. It feels very empowering, I should say, to know somebody noticed the work that you're doing. You're talking about a sense of belonging. There's something called bucket fillers. I'm going way back to the school days working with the kids. Bucket fillers. People were fighting, young people, staff, everybody was fighting over a way to fill somebody's bucket. It not only empowers the staff and the team members and the people around you, it empowers you, the person who's sharing that story. Looking for and believing the best around the people around you, the people you work with, the people you're on team with. Belonging, creating that culture of belonging is important. And then lastly, the role of leadership beyond title. I'm going to say that again because it was my favorite one. That's why I wanted to close with this bullet. The role of leadership beyond title. I don't care nothing about your title. Are you modeling inclusive behavior? Are you modeling a leader that I want to follow? A peer that I want to be on team with? A collaborator? An innovative creator? Are you that person that I want to work with? And I myself, ask yourself that every day in the mirror. They talked about that self-awareness. Ask yourself, is it your title or is it that behavior that you're practicing to create belonging around you? And I know sometimes it's hard. Somebody talked about, I said, oh, somebody's a thorn in my side. And somebody reminded me that you might be somebody's thorn too, or several. I'm just saying, shout out. Okay, I know I got some work to do. But there's a reality that you know that you have work to do, and how you show up and model those behavior can really change a system. It can change a team for the better. And it really allows us to think outside the box when it comes to collaboration and really creating this culture of inclusivity and belonging and making a space for all to be able to sit at the table. Which one is for you, friend? Which one are you going to work on? What are you thinking about? What did you write in that workbook? What came to mind? Is it the encourager? Is it that empowerment you're looking for? Or are you going to start working on modeling that behavior? Go ahead and write that down. Take a second to process that. I'm excited to be on with these ladies and get to do this work. And shout out to Eric for opening us up and having these conversations today, because we're thinking a lot about practices that are important. And some of these practices are practices that are age old, but they kind of fell by the wayside, excuse me. And we want to kind of pick them back up. We want to find a place to open the door for opportunity for us to collaborate and work better, no matter what's going on in the world. So as we're going to wrap up here, I'm just going to give us just some quick notes, just some highlights as you're looking back through your workbook and something you might be thinking through and that one idea that you're processing and where do I want to start? Pick the thing, work on that self-awareness, do it daily in small steps, and think about what those collaborations could look like on your team. In session 1, we talked about building belonging and how it revolves around self-awareness and small daily choices. I love that. Small daily choices. In that second half, we talked about identifying barriers to equity in the workplace and looking into building accountability and measuring progress with your team in a creative and safe space, and fostering a culture of allyship and belonging. The through line today is belonging and what that looks like for us in our teams, in the workplace, creating change. Thank you. I'm going to turn it back over to Nick so she can wrap us up.
Thanks, Kevin. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today. We've had such fun being with you, and we hope that you have enjoyed your time with us. We're just going to share some contact information. We would love to stay connected with you. And if you enjoyed this experience and like what you learned, contact us. Let's stay connected. We can also go way deeper into these topics. This was a lot of surface information today. It was really good information and strategies. We'd love to even take it a step further with you and take that next step with you. And we can create a custom, personalized experience for your team, for your workplace. So feel free to connect with us and we could talk with you about how we could bring this topic and many more to your workspace and do some work with your teams. So if you'd like to connect with us, the QR code that you see will sign you up to stay on our email list. We have videos and things we're dropping all the time that are really great, and it'll just help you to stay kind of in the know with all of that and stay on our contact list. Also, we really want to keep getting better at what we do. So we would really appreciate your feedback. So if you could just take like 2 to 3 minutes, scan this QR code, it's a different one. If you could just let us know what you thought about today, what was helpful that we should continue to do and make sure that we continue to incorporate, and where are spaces that we could even improve this topic and this content. So if you could take a moment and give us your feedback, we would be very thankful. Again, thank you so much for your time today. We have enjoyed being with you and are grateful to have spent some time talking about building belonging and how to help our workplaces and spaces around us thrive.